As we have come to the end of the prayers of the faithful, now we sit down for the intermission as we listen to a nice hymn. Wrong! The offertory is not an intermission, as much as it often is treated as such. The offertory rites are the preparation for the sacrifice that I talked about last week. First, there are physical, logistical elements that need to be taken care of as we switch to the Eucharistic offering, mainly the setting of the altar. Here, the sacred implements that are needed to offer the sacrifice are brought forward from the credence table, usually by the altar servers. Because the charism of deacons is one of service, one of their tasks is to serve at table. This is why, if a deacon is present, he is the one who usually sets the altar instead of the priest or servers. The first thing to go down is the corporal. This word comes from the Latin root word corpus, which means body. In the dinner party model, the corporal is the placemat. It is a special folded cloth that is laid out over the spot where the body will be. During the fraction rite, the priest breaks the host into pieces. This can cause small pieces of the body of Christ to go flying. The corporal is designed to catch these small fragments. That is why it is never supposed to be fluffed out like a tablecloth. Instead, it is folded into a pouch to hold any fragments that are there until they can be removed by a special cleaning process later. As the bottom edge is the most likely to contain fragments, that is folded a third of the way up first. Then the top is folded down a third of the way, and then both sides are folded in. This leaves any possible sacred fragments inside the corporal. Because corporals are sometimes used repeatedly between cleanings, it has to be set down on the altar and unfolded in this same reverse order. Next, the Roman Missal is placed on the altar, near the corporal. The exact placement is left up to the priest, and what he needs in order to be able to read the prayers. The most common location is to be slightly to the left of the corporal and angled towards the priest, but this is not a requirement. Usually, a small sheet of paper with the Mass intentions for the week is tucked in near the Missal so that their names can be mentioned during the prayer. The ciboriums come next. These are sacred vessels plated with precious metals that are used to hold the hosts. Since the hosts become the body of Christ during the Eucharistic prayer, these vessels are consecrated and may not be used for anything other than holding the body of Christ. It is also why they are required to be plated in precious metals, usually gold, because we should give our best back to God. The number of ciboriums placed out for Mass is related to how many people are attending that Mass and how many Eucharistic ministers will be there. For the dinner party model, these ciboriums would be like the bowls on the table. Next, the chalice and communion cups. By definition, a chalice is a special kind of cup, where the base is wider than the cup, the part that holds the fluid. But sacramentally, the chalice is the main cup that the priest is using. Any other cup that holds the blood of Christ is called a communion cup. When stacked, the chalice has 4 parts. First, the pall, just like the cloth that covers the body at a funeral. That's because the pall covers the chalice to protect the body and blood, usually from flies or other contaminants in the air. With modern air conditioning and sealed buildings, this is less necessary than it was in the past, when the windows would be open. However, you may still see me place this on the chalice in the middle of the Eucharistic prayer when a fly is buzzing around the altar. The second part of the stack is the paten, and it is essentially a plate that holds the main host. Patens are usually made to match a particular chalice, and they come as a set. All patens are somewhat recessed in the middle to better keep the host from sliding off and to keep the paten from sliding off the chalice. but even this ranges from a very shallow recess, being nearly flat with a slight curve, all the way up to basically being a ciborium on top of the chalice. That way it can be used to distribute communion to the faithful. The third part of the stack is the purificator. This functions like a napkin. It is laid to the side of the corporal and is used to wipe the edge of the chalice after consuming and in the purification process after communion. Hence the name. The last part of the stack is the chalice itself. You may have noticed that there is also a crucifix on the altar facing the priest. This is to remind the priest of the sacrifice he is making present in thanksgiving of God's great gift. Now that the altar is set, we can begin the offertory rites, which we will cover next time. God bless.